Hey, welcome to 23 Degrees Sideways. We're going to talk some more about the Nova groups. This is kind of a part 2 video. I don't know if this is necessarily going to be parts and a segment and a playlist. I'll probably eventually figure out playlists. I'm still having problems figuring out the mobile studio app, which doesn't allow me to reply to comments. And that's a bizarre lack of functionality that I just don't understand. Google, Alphabet, YouTube, whoever they are this week, I don't get it. So we were talking about the Nova groups and talking about the idea of processing and how if I make breakfast sausage at home, I can feel different. Like I will feel better eating it than if I buy breakfast sausage from the store. Exactly the same ingredients, okay? Exactly the same. Just pork, oregano, salt, pepper. Like I can get exactly those ingredients at a breakfast sausage made in-house at a co-op in California or a butcher shop in Scottsdale or wherever I'm at. And it will affect me differently if I'm making it myself and putting it in my freezer and cooking it and eating it. I will feel energized. I'm selecting my ingredients, okay? I'm not necessarily going crazy on the pork quality, but I will be doing my own oregano and salt and grinding my own pepper. So I'm not using Walmart oregano flakes, just for an example, because I don't know what those actually are and what ingredients are added to them, because there are ingredients added to almost all commercial spices, and I'm going to leave it at that. At the very least, they add like cellulose and dextrose. Like they just add stuff to keep it from clumping and whatever. Citric acid is common for color preservation, all sorts of things. So, if I make the stuff at home, it energizes me. And if I buy it from store, it drags me down a little bit. Now, technically, this is a group 2 or group 3 Nova classification food because it's sausage. It's ground. Okay, and this is skinless sausage, by the way. It's breakfast sausage, okay, where you make the links by just putting them in a pan and using a pastry knife to shape them. So, skinless links, breakfast links. I would consider that a group 2 food. It does have the seasonings, the oregano, the black pepper, and the salt. I don't consider salt to be something that would shift anything from group 1 to group 2, so I just kind of leave that out. Now they're going to consider that a group 3 or group 4 food. If group 4, if you're dealing with one of the ideological organizations that thinks meat is bad. Probably group 3 if you're listening to the basic Nova classifications. And I don't think that's appropriate. I think that this is a group 2. It's a very mildly processed. You're grinding it and freezing it at home. And I don't think that shifts things as much. There's something that happens when it's not at your house, not in your hands. Something happens that is different. And it becomes a group 3 in health model, in the model of health and diet. It becomes a group 3 food. And we don't know why. I have some suspicions. I have a lot of theories. I have a lot of ideas. I have a lot of stuff to talk about. And some of it is very intuitive or intuition-based, even though it may seem counterintuitive to people who've been trained to not think about it. But it's all about body ecology, who you are, where you live, your extended body ecology. And things like oxidation and histamine levels and stuff like that. If you grind the beef yourself, you don't have that massive oxidation effect that you do at the store. You don't. Even if you leave it on the counter to age, for some reason it just doesn't do the same thing as it does at the store. There's probably some chemicals that are involved. There's a lot of sanitizers and things that are supposed to evaporate or be volatile and erase themselves from existence and be safe for you to eat. And I don't really buy all of that. So I use the parsimonious model for this, which is it didn't exist before and people were healthy. It does exist now and people are having more health issues. So I'm just going to suspect all of that. That doesn't make me a Luddite as such. And I do this in a thinking fashion. I'm not just automatically like, oh, new is bad. Oh no, you used a ceramic knife instead of a steel knife. You're horrible. Not that. Be reasonable about this. But if you add sodium benzoate, that's not something that you added in an ancestral human diet. An ancestral human diet didn't have any preservatives. And people think, oh, it must have been bad for you. Look at all the sickness, all the death. But that doesn't follow from the diet. It follows from restrictions on the diet. It follows from restrictions on food storage. It follows on restrictions stemming from a seasonal agriculture basis, overcrowding in cities, limitation on movement, hovels, living in hovels, like crappy hygiene environments, all of that. Not the preservatives. It's all of that. So, NOVA classifications. Since that is actually the topic, I'm going to pull this in all together. If I'm dealing with an outside source, if I'm dealing with that infrastructure of the agricultural civilization that we have, then I'm adding a level. I'm adding a complication and a set of inputs, a set of contaminants, a set of somethings that is modifying the food and adding a processing component to it, decreasing the nutrition value. The idea of the NOVA groups is that the more you process, the lower the nutrition value. That's why they try to put sausage in 4, because according to the vegetarian Seventh-day Adventist model, or whatever group it is this time, meat is inherently unhealthy or something like that. So I don't eat what you want. You can be totally healthy eating anything you want within reason. Like, you don't have to follow a carnivore diet or a vegetarian diet or a Mediterranean diet. They're all workable if you get the nutrition right, and you get the stress levels right, and you get your body ecology right. But I don't like when things are demonized for ideological purposes based on, and then fakery is done. Okay, lies are told, about the food because there's a religious connotation, and then it's sold as, somehow being green or something, so everyone gets attached to it. It's dishonest. The NOVA classifications are supposed to inversely correlate to nutrition value. So using that scale, which I don't think is an equivalent thing, the more processing, the lower the nutrition value. Removing it from your preparation, removing it from your local family, kitchen, community, whatever it is, adds a level of processing or reduces the nutrition value. Okay? And your body ecology, your greater body ecology, okay? People talk about the microbiome and the internal microbiome a lot, and that's all inside, and that's a internal body ecology. But, you have a biome on your skin. You have a biome in your hair. You have a biome in your bed, on your clothes, in your kitchen, in your house, in your yard. It's all part of you, okay? Think of this as like a sourdough culture. All right, you have people who have good sourdough and bad sourdough, and that's basically their body ecology, their greater body ecology. Your greater body ecology could be very extensive. It could be somewhat isolated. It's a little bit fuzzy, okay? And we're going to have to talk about that a little bit, and it's kind of fuzzy, but if you are a regular member of a church group, it's just a good example because when I was a child, there were church cooking events all the time. Right, it's kind of like the first thing the Mormons do when they build a church is build a basketball court in a building like a basketball gym. You hold services there while you're building the church, but you play basketball. And the second thing they build is the kitchen. the community kitchen, and it's huge commercial grade kitchens. They're fantastic and everything, but there's a lot of cooking that goes on. That becomes part of your greater body ecology in that community environment, because it is a constant flowing dynamic part of your existence. Okay, that matters. You're giving and getting from it. It's a dynamic, interpenetrated system. It's not a consumer system, okay? You are inputting as well as getting outputs from it. This is important, although it sounds freaky, and people probably don't want to think about the bacteria and the fungi that they're sharing with others and having shared back with them, and like that's kind of gross to the Western mind, but that's how it works, all right? That's your greater body ecology. If you make something, ferment something, process something, do something, butcher a cow as a community, whatever it is, make kimchi, if you do it in that environment, it's attached to, dynamically attached to, it is symbiotic with your greater body ecology, and it seems to just be healthier. Excuse that, I just kicked my tripod. It seems to have a higher nutrition value, a lower stress value, a lower toxicity, a lower inflammatory value, and these things all matter. It all comes together, okay? So we're talking about the Nova groups, and they kind of have this idea of putting it together as processing instead of putting it together as nutrition, and that's in part because they're missing the idea of a whole system, all right? I'm preaching a whole holistic system here that's just bizarre to many people. So let's have fun. The Nova system lacks a level 0 on the scale, and it equates things that are highly processed, that are ultra processed, as being less than that. But the core idea, despite all of their mistakes, is that ultra-processed food is bad, is separated from a nutritive or natural state. And I think that you can look at that and make use of that. I'm not sure that you can make use of it in their framework intelligently, reliably, honestly, or healthfully, but you can make use of the idea is kind of sound in its own way, all right? Don't buy any kind of cooking oil that requires more than one step of processing. Okay, lard, not hydrogenated, real lard, okay? Hydrogenated is another step of processing, makes it horrible anyway. Very bad for you. Lard, pig lard, very high in vitamin D if you're using pastured pig. Very, very high. Lard is made by slowly rendering the fat down, and that's it. It's done. It's a one-step process. First cold press extra virgin olive oil. That stuff, you just squish, let it go through the filter, and it's olive oil. Perfect. Fine. There's olive oil that is not that. There's olive oil that is removed with heat and second pressing and all sorts of stuff, and that there's issues there. Avocado oil, maybe. Not convinced. Coconut oil, borderline. I really think that it's more processed than that. Single step processing. So basically, olive oil, first cold press extra virgin olive oil, tallow, duck fat, lard, beef tallow, sheep tallow. That's it. Those are your oils of choice, of preference. That's what you look at. Butter's pretty easy. You take milk, you churn it. You may let it separate a little bit, so you take the cream off the top or whatever you're doing. Depends on your model and your mode, but butter's a pretty good one. Ghee is kind of iffy. Most of the ghee that I've actually had hasn't felt as good to eat as butter. There's a heat process. There's a long-term heat processing issue that seems to either be overdone or something. Okay? So yeah, there's a problem with that. It doesn't seem quite right. Not quite right. So that's what you look at. Beans. If you are going to eat green beans, I don't eat beans. They're horrible, bad for you, awful, whatever. Argue with me. I don't like them. I do not see good results from them. Lots of gastrointestinal stress from all sorts of populations that I talk to. But say green beans. Green beans that you pick off of the bush are the best. Pick them, devein them, pull that string off, eat them. Don't cook them, eat them, right? Put them in salad, whatever. Chop them in half if you want to. They're really long and skinny, whatever it is. Grill them. That's fine too. Grill them, grill asparagus, grill green onions, all that stuff. That's grilled. They're really good. It's a single step process. If you can them, not pickle them, but can them. We'll get to that in a moment. Different process. You've already added steps. You've overcooked them to begin with. Then you're going to cook them again, and they're not the same. You've just destroyed it. It is no longer a food item. Pickling, so live ferment pickling. You can do that with green beans. You can do that with the radish seed pods. You can do that with pickles. Cucumbers. You can do that with zucchini. Whatever it is. When you do that live culture pickling, it's a completely different environment, completely different thing. Totally different. That's not cooking. It's not canning in the cooked, processed sense. So that's, again, basically a single-step process. You eat it. Single-step process is one of the hallmarks of looking for food that is not just fresh. Single-step process, and then look at the ingredients. Look at what's added. And you don't need any of this stuff. You don't need any of it. You don't need anything at the grocery store that comes in a package that is preserved in any way, shape, or form. You can go there and just hit the vegetable aisle and the meat department, and not even the fish department unless it's fresh in the case, because most of the frozen fish is sprayed with this nasty, horrible, toxic chemicals. Try something. I'll look it up again. It's bad stuff, especially like shellfish and stuff. But you'll find it with like your frozen salmon and everything. So fresh seafood. I basically won't buy commercial pork at a grocery store anymore because they add too much. They add natural flavors and juices to it, and it's like, not only is it 16% water, but that water isn't actually water, it's flavoring in solution, and it's just horrible. Like you can feel it hit your body. Really bad. So basically, I'm looking at ruminant meats and vegetables and eggs, good eggs, and some of the dairy, maybe, like butter. When I go to a grocery store, you don't need any of the other stuff. You don't need it. It all has crappy ingredients. If you want kimchi, make kimchi. If you can't make kimchi, get online. Go on Craigslist. Date a Korean girl. What do you need to do? Find someone who makes kimchi. Get it from them. Okay? Pay them. Be like, hey, if I went to Costco, I'd have to pay $10 for a quart of the cheap shit that's not even real. I'll give you $10. Give me a quart of kimchi. Just do it. It's fine. It's easy. You can get farm fresh eggs in most cities if you actually look. So none of this stuff is necessary. Single ingredient, single step process. Your NOVA classification system should start with 0 and end with 2. That's about it. Stay sideways.